Before I go further, I especially want to thank everyone who is attending by WebEx. If anyone who is online needs assistance with language translation, please click on the link at the bottom of your program. You can select your language and it will provide closed caption for you. So as excited as I am to see so many people here, I confess to being a little bit intimidated. Big groups of people don't normally show up to tell us that we're doing a good job or to give us a pat on the back. But then we didn't invite you to do that either. We invited you to help us do a better job. We should be careful what we ask for, because obviously a lot of you think we could be doing a better job. But that's exactly what we want. As I mentioned, I'm a circuit court judge, and I work here in Manchester in the building that you may be familiar with as the old district courthouse, and before that, the union leader offices. In the circuit court, we hear everything from civil and criminal matters to landlord-tenant, to divorce and parenting cases, guardianships, child abuse and neglect, domestic violence, terminations of parental rights. We also have mental health courts and veterans courts, cases which involve a great deal of trauma and angst. The overwhelming majority of our cases include self-represented parties, meaning they have no lawyer to help them. In 85% of our divorce and parenting cases, at least one party is self-represented, often both. The numbers are worse for domestic violence and stalking cases, nearly 90 and 96% respectively. Circuit courts are what we call community courts, the courts closest to the people. Our 60 full and part-time judicial officers and nearly 400 staff are located at over 30 sites around the state. We have over 105,000 new cases every year, or to put that in context, in the circuit court, we handle about 90% of the state's caseload. The public comes to us for help. We are often referred to as the emergency room of the judicial branch. We triage, we prioritize, and then we do our level best to help. That's our job. That is our constitutional mandate. I've been a judge here for over 30 years. I've also worked at the Justice Department as the director of the Office on Violence Against Women in Washington. I've served on dozens of committees, and I've trained judges and prosecutors, law enforcement officers, and advocates all around the country and in many countries abroad. Mostly on child protection and domestic violence, but always with the underlying theme of making our systems work better to serve and be more responsive to the needs of the public. As impactful as all of that work has been, it pales in comparison to the promise this project holds. What distinguishes this initiative from all of our other work is its genesis, its development, and its potential for enduring, system-wide, sustainable improvement. In the fall of 2021, the Chief Justice of our Supreme Court, Gordon MacDonald, who you'll meet momentarily, determined that New Hampshire needed to join the other state courts around the country that were undertaking programs to improve and enhance diversity and inclusion in the justice system. This room, this is his brainchild. The chief purposely did not want this to be a top-down endeavor, but rather an organic, bottoms-up effort. He came to my co-chair, Judge Ruoff, who you'll also meet in a moment from the Superior Court. Is that okay, hopefully? To ask us if we would lead this effort. And then he gave us the incomparable assistance of Jackie Waters, who was in the back. For over 12 months, we worked to create a strategic plan. We assembled a steering committee of our peers, and then we reached out to the community to form and bring on a board of advisors to help guide our work. This project has the potential to change virtually everything we do and how we do it. We are doing this work across all courts and all personnel, From the court security officer who greets you at the door when you come in the courthouse, to every person you work with, every clerk on the phone or in person, and to every judge who hears your case. Everyone and everyone's role will be impacted. We want every person's experience to be positive, whether you're a white middle-class woman like me, or a young black man, or someone who is hearing impaired or has a disability. Diversity is not only race and ethnicity, it's gender, age, socioeconomic status, sexual orientation, and much more. Our point is, we want everyone to be treated with dignity and respect, regardless of their background or need. This is where you come in. We are now turning to all of you for help. We're here in Manchester tonight, the most diverse city in the state, in this incredibly beautiful community resource center. We are here literally and figuratively. We are here to hear. We are here with you. No benches, no barriers, no Kevlar vests, to hear from you. There's a perfect truism. We don't know what we don't know. We need you to help us learn what needs to be fixed, what needs to be added or removed, and how we can do this important work better. You're going to hear from a few of us first to learn about our intentions, and then the most exciting part of the evening will begin, when we can sit and talk with you, for you to ask questions, offer ideas, and share your concerns. On the tables, you have note cards in addition to your programs for questions that we may not reach this evening, or perhaps you'd rather address with us privately. We also have surveys on the tables as well that we'd ask you to complete later. And on your programs, you have the bit.ly and you have a QR code that will also direct you to all of the resources about the Diversity and Inclusion Initiative, and also have the survey on it for you to complete at your leisure on your phone whenever you can. And for those of you watching by WebEx, we have a chat feature as well. And we're not going to be able to answer questions in real time tonight, but I promise we will get back to you with answers to all of your questions. So with that, it is now my honor to introduce the Chief Justice of the New Hampshire Supreme Court. He's very anxious to get up here. Gordon MacDonald. Chief Justice MacDonald has been on the court for only a short time, but in that time, he has made it known in no uncertain terms that he wants our collective court to be different tomorrow than it is today, to be stronger, more inclusive, and more responsive to the needs of the public. Before he became our chief, I didn't know him personally, although I certainly knew of him, given his many endeavors around the state, including serving as our Attorney General for 4 years. But while he was in private practice, he chaired the Supreme Court's Commission on the New Hampshire Bar in the 21st century. He served on the Supreme Court's Access to Justice Commission. He was also a volunteer for the New Hampshire Bar Association's Domestic Violence Emergency Project, or DOVE as we know it. And he served in many other capacities, including on the Board of Bar Examiners. But you'll observe the common underlying current: public service. We could spend the entire evening discussing his accomplishments, but I'll share only one story. He won't remember this, but I first met the chief when he was chairing the Leadership Council for the Campaign for Legal Services. I remember going to one particular breakfast meeting where he spoke so passionately about the plight of people who could not afford an attorney. In that role, he demonstrated the most genuine commitment to ensuring that those without financial resources would have access to the justice system. That alone spoke volumes to me. When I learned that he was being nominated to be our chief, trying to keep up with him, he has such extraordinary energy and vision. and it is a privilege to call him our Chief Justice. Judge McDowell.
Good evening. Thank you very much, Judge Carbon, for those words. But this is really not as much as I appreciate them, this is really not about me or any individual. This is about us collectively and all of us working together to do exactly what you said to make our court system better. And I commend your leadership and that of Judge Ruoff in this effort. Before I get going, I want to acknowledge three of my colleagues from the Supreme Court are here. Over here is Senior Associate Justice Gary Hicks, Associate Justice Anna Barbara Hans Marconi, right here. And Associate Justice Patrick Donovan over here. Justice Bassett, James Bassett, very much wanted to be here, but unfortunately could not. But on behalf of all five of us, I want to thank everyone for being here. It is truly heartwarming and moving and so encouraging to see this crowd tonight. I also want to take the opportunity to thank our hosts, the Manchester Community Resource Center, and its incredible CEO, Rennie Denton. They've just been incredible hosts for us here. And although we'll introduce our advisory board, I do, on a personal basis, want to acknowledge and thank them. Virtually all of them are in the room tonight, and they have just been extraordinary partners in this. I've learned so much from them, and our work has been, and I know will be, enriched by their contributions. Our mission in the New Hampshire judiciary is to ensure the fair and impartial administration of justice with respect for the dignity of all the people we serve. Equal justice under the law is essential to our democracy. It's essential to the rule of law. It is essential to who we are as a people in a community. But the promise of equal justice must be measured against how well our justice system is serving all people. As those charged with responsibility for our system of justice, we have a duty to ensure we are doing all we can to meet the needs of the people of New Hampshire. And we, as a Supreme Court, are deeply committed to doing just that. We heard just now from Judge Carbon that on any given day, she and her colleagues down at the Manchester Circuit Court are dealing with very, very busy dockets, which have between 80 and 96% the people coming before them without a lawyer. They are self-represented litigants. And they appear before our courts as parents, as tenants, as debtors, as survivors of domestic violence, but they are there without a lawyer, defending their rights and basic human needs. So for the poor and economically marginalized in New Hampshire who cannot afford a lawyer, the promise of equal justice falls short. As a court, we are strongly committed to addressing that, and we are taking steps to do so. But we need to look at other gaps in our justice system, where we may be falling short and where there are opportunities, indeed imperatives, to improve. And that's the essence of this project, this initiative that brings us here together tonight. We seek to engage with diverse and minority communities in our changing state, to learn from them about their perceptions and experiences with our justice system, to examine our own data to determine what it tells us about how we're doing, to understand how we can be better, more inclusive as an employer, and how our workforce can reflect the communities that we serve, to be a productive and engaged partner with the very important private bar and legal educators, the efforts of the private bar and legal educators in efforts to diversify our profession and to do better where we discover issues, hurdles, barriers, problems affecting access to justice in our courts. As Judge Carbon mentioned, although this is our formal announcement, the Supreme Court, and this is very, very much a project of our entire Supreme Court, got this ball rolling more than a year ago. And on behalf of my colleagues, I want to assure you that this is a process to which we are all deeply committed. We know we have much to do and much to learn, and we will do so with respect and dignity. And we will also do so by being transparent and accountable. And behind me on the screen is our web address for our diversity program, and I invite you to follow our progress in the months and years ahead. In a few minutes, we'll begin our engagement. I'll be sitting right here with Senator D'Alessandro and the others at that table, and we look forward to the opportunity to engage. And we look forward to the opportunity to engage in the months and time ahead as we all collectively seek to improve our justice system for the benefit of all in New Hampshire. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Chief. You've set the stage for us so well. Thank you. As you've heard, over the past many months, I've had the pleasure of working with our next speaker, Judge David Roth, who is an Associate Justice of the Superior Court and the Supervisory Judge in Rockingham County. Before his appointment in 2016, he was in private practice, also here in Manchester, focusing on criminal and civil litigation. Judge Roth also has an extensive history of public service. He has served on the Professional Conduct Committee, Access to Justice Commission, and the Judicial Council, and also the Federal Court's Complex and Major Crimes Panel. He has been an adjunct professor at the University of New Hampshire School of Law for over 25 years, teaching advanced trial advocacy and evidence. And he would have been the Bar Association's president, but for the governor pulling him up to appoint him to the bench. So presently he is also serving on the Board of Bar Examiners. More than all of that, Judge Roth has been a partner in every sense of the word, a colleague who brings energy and humor, perspective and intelligence to this work. And it is indeed challenging work, and I can't imagine having a better partner to do it with. So Judge Roth.
Okay, my task in the 3 to 4 minutes I have to talk, Judge Carbon is a taskmaster and keeps me on track, which is something that I desperately need. But before I do that, I just want to remind everybody that equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the state on account of race, creed, color, sex, or national origin. And that's a quote from Part 1, Article 2 of our Constitution. It's also one of the first things you'll read if you go online here and read our strategic plan, which I encourage you all to do so because I'm going to talk a little bit about it in a second. One of the quotes behind me that was flashing up while everybody was mingling is that from our Chief Justice, Tina Netto, who is down in Tennessee right now representing the state at a national conference. And that quote is, It's time for the justice system to see, hear, and treat everyone with an understanding of the circumstances of their lives through the lens of race, ethnicity, gender identity, sexual orientation, and ability. And those are related to the mission statement of our diversity and inclusion initiative in this state. I would like to identify, getting to the nuts and bolts section of my 3 to 4 minutes here, the Diversity and Inclusion Steering Committee members, and I'll just ask them to stand up quickly so that I can identify them so that you can talk to them while we're here. Obviously myself and Judge Carbon. Jackie Waters, okay. Melissa Countway, wherever you are, Melissa. Judge Countway, thank you. Judge William Delker. Sarah Friedman. Oh, she's sick, that's right. Tim Gudis from the Supreme Court. Jen Hagar, clerk of the Rockingham Superior Court. Judge Mace is also on WebEx, I believe, but he's not here sick. I don't think Diane could be here. Victoria Prestigion. And Judge Charles, also known as Chuck Temple. All right. I'd also like to know, I don't have a list of actually who from our advisory board members are here, but I should tell you that after getting together with the steering committee a number of times, we were very deliberate in choosing a broad spectrum of community leaders to comprise our advisory board. Our advisory board is going to be charged with the mission of making sure that we stay on track, holding us accountable, and providing us valuable feedback on how we roll out the program and deal with our strategic plan rolling forward. So all the advisory board members that are here, if you could please just stand, and I'll give you a round of applause for some of the work you've done so far. Thank you. I'd also like to let you know that in working up our strategic plan, that we have enlisted the National Center for State Courts and have contracted with Edwin Bell and Andrea Miller as our consultants for diversity and inclusion initiatives, training, and perhaps some data collection. I'm going to tell you right now that our steering committee is divided into various areas to make sure that we don't miss anything. So we have a demographics and workplace policies committee, a qualitative analysis committee, data collection committee, training and pipeline diversity committee, a committee on communications, and then a committee on reporting that will provide updates publicly so that everyone can measure the process and the progress of the court system. Our goals are to identify where systemic racism exists in our courts and develop a plan to address them, identify and present training opportunities for judicial officers and staff in areas such as implicit bias, develop and implement recruit and retention strategies that help diversify the judicial branch workforce, join with community partners to improve services and outcomes for underserved, vulnerable, or marginalized people, and develop effective, supportive, and creative solutions to respond to their legal needs. Also, to engage the public in forums outside of court to better understand their personal experiences with the courts and reaffirm our commitment to equal justice under the law. That's a summary of the goals. There's much more detail on our website if you want to take a look at them. So this tonight is just the beginning. We don't have answers to all of the questions that we have asked ourselves. We are working in the process and believe that we have come up with a strategic plan that allows us to create a vocabulary amongst ourselves, to have a conversation amongst ourselves, and to listen to the community that the justice system serves. The diversity and inclusion, for those people on the outside looking in, is a very personal experience for them. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of personal experience about me in the 1 minute that I have left. I've been a judge for 7 years, and I was involved in the justice system in this state for almost 20 years before that. And as I started to pay attention to, more recently, how diversity and inclusion issues started to creep into the national collective consciousness and the media, I, having been raised in New Hampshire, educated in New Hampshire, raised in rural New Hampshire, thought that didn't happen here. That we don't have a problem. I was one of many that believe that that is something that happens in other places. I believe that our system and the system that I'd worked so long and tirelessly in didn't have those issues. The journey that I've undertaken personally in the last 18 months, particularly the last year since the chief asked me to step into this role, has taken me to an understanding of things that I just never thought I'd get to. It's very difficult for me as a judge and for someone that's been in this system for so long to hear the criticism that we have systemic racism. I have an emotional reaction to it, to say no. I could not be part of that system. That's an insult to me. The last year and a half has taught me to be more reflective. I've had the opportunity to listen to people about their perspectives, about their experiences in the last year, and it's really opened my mind. And it's really made me understand that we have a lot of work to do. And as one who has benefited from a lot of privilege by virtue of where I was born and who my parents were, I can honestly say that I understand now, at least, that I was not perfect in my perception. And if I can undergo that deep, meaningful reflection, I certainly believe that all my colleagues can too, and our system should. Not only because it's in our Constitution, but because it is the morally right thing to do. So I look forward to how this system will change, how our policies will change, and I'm quite frankly excited to see everybody here tonight, and I look forward to hearing from you and working with you in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Judge Ruoff. It's really important for us to bear in mind that we are at the very beginning of a very long process to change what we're doing and how we're going to be doing it. So you're now going to have the opportunity to hear from two of our advisory board members, the first being Susan Stearns. Now, I met Ms. Stearns when she was the director of the Domestic Violence Services Program in Plymouth back in the 80s. We go way back. She is now the executive director of the National Alliance for Mental Health, New Hampshire, and brings the same energy and passion to this work as she did on behalf of survivors of domestic violence decades ago. She has worked in the nonprofit sector of New Hampshire for over 30 years, advocating for families, children, and individuals with disabilities. Among her many volunteer roles, in addition to her work role with NAMI New Hampshire, she serves as the facilitator of the Hillsborough County Coalition on Mental Health and Justice, and she is a member of the Governor's Commission on Disability and the Governor's Advisory Commission on Mental Illness and the Corrections System. She also serves on the board of the New Hampshire Justice Involved Veterans Task Force. Ms. Stearns has worked tirelessly to end the stigma associated with mental illness. She spent last week, all of last week, meeting with our congressional delegation in Washington to talk about the importance of funding these issues and these important programs. Tonight, she is here to share why this work is important to those who suffer from mental illness. Please welcome Susan Stearns.
Thank you, Judge Carbon. I would have you introduce me everywhere going forward. That was lovely. I'm truly honored to have this opportunity and feel a little bit like I don't belong, but that's why we're here. I come to this work at NAMI New Hampshire as a family member, someone who has multiple loved ones affected by mental illness, living with mental illness. I have lost loved ones to suicide and seen the ravages that substance misuse can bring to a loved one's life. I am lucky to do this work, though, with so many family members like me, brave people who are living with mental illness, co-occurring substance use and mental health disorders, those who have survived suicide attempts, and those who have also lost people to suicide. Those folks with whom I interact with the courts for a variety of reasons related to their own or their loved one's mental illness or other disabilities. And that can be at the criminal level because someone who is symptomatic gets in trouble, or it can be in all those myriad ways that we've talked about, and I'll touch on a little bit here at the circuit court. I want to share with you that in my role as a member of this committee, we were asked to reach out to folks who would talk to judges from the court and justices about their experience, what they thought about this initiative. And when I sent that message along to our NAMI New Hampshire advocates, now these are people, individuals and families, who have lived experience with mental illness, co-occurring disorders, and these are folks who I would call the fiercest of advocates. There's not a shy one in the bunch. Yet, when asked if they would be willing to talk with folks from the court and share their thoughts on diversity and inclusion based on their own experiences, very few could bring themselves to do so. Their experiences bring up deeply painful times in their lives, sometimes the worst times of their lives. So, realizing this, I reflected upon those ways in which we find ourselves interacting with the court system, and I realized indeed how profoundly the courts have impacted my life and those of many people I care for. In my role at NAMI New Hampshire, and my role as a family member, and as someone who has been the caregiver of a loved one dying from dementia, I have had a lot of those interactions. As a civil society, our courts play an integral role in helping us to ensure that our own rights and those of our loved ones are protected, and that indeed our society is a civil one. From those petitioners for protective orders, around intimate partner violence and stalking, to landlord-tenant disputes and evictions, which unfortunately plague people with mental illness far too often, to divorce and custody arrangements, to legal guardianship of adults, and to involuntary emergency admission petitions seeking to keep those we love safe, we come to the courts at our most vulnerable. We share with the courts things that sometimes we might never otherwise say aloud, let alone share with any other single living person. And this is why I think this initiative is so very important. Because while we all think, we don't want to wind up in court, the reality is that for a variety of reasons, we all do at some point. Our courts should be reflective of the society they serve and the citizens of our community. It is our court system, one where each of us belongs because it belongs to us. Over the past several years, we have begun here in New Hampshire and beyond to recognize that far too many of our neighbors are not included and do not feel they belong. This diversity and inclusion initiative of the New Hampshire court system is, as you've heard, a work in progress, but it is a work that cannot be done in isolation, and that is why the conversations like those here tonight are so important, so that we can have these opportunities to meet with the justices, our judges, our court personnel, these people with whom we will and do indeed interact throughout our lives. All of us here in this room at this moment have the opportunity to help create truly meaningful systems change that will indeed ensure that we all belong in this incredible court system of ours. So thank you all for being here tonight. I can't wait to hear your conversations.
Susan, thank you so much. We have so much to learn, and I so appreciate you being on the advisory board. So Thank you. I don't know why or how it took me so long to meet our next speaker, but I am surely grateful that I have. James McKim is the founder and managing partner of Organizational Ignition, a management consulting firm. He's nationally known consultant with over 35 years of experience and is the author of a best-selling book entitled The Diversity Factor: Igniting Superior Organizational Performance. In addition to founding 2 companies, he has held or worked with senior leadership roles at a number of different organizations, including Dartmouth-Hitchcock, the Massachusetts Partnership for Diversity in Education, and Fidelity. He has served on many boards, including his present positions as chair of the New Hampshire PBS Finance Committee, chair of the Episcopal Church's National Executive Council Committee on Anti-Racism, and he is president of the Manchester NAACP. This is in his spare time, right? He's also a jazz vocalist with the Episcocats, so maybe he will sing his comments to us this evening. He did a couple nights ago. So he is also one of the most gifted and visionary thinkers and speakers about diversity, equity, and inclusion I have ever met. He brings such enormous perspective to our work, and we are so grateful that you are so generous with your time. So please welcome James McKim.
Thank you, Judge Carbon. And thank you to Chief McDonald for initiating this significant and needed initiative and for inviting me to be part of this. Thank you to Judges Carbon and Ruoff for driving this effort. And thank you to all of you for taking the time to attend this momentous event. I'm humbled and honored to stand before you this evening. As Judge Carbon said, we were asked to share our thoughts on why this initiative is needed and what we hope will come of it. In this country, people of color have had a long history of mistreatment by the criminal justice system. NAACP polling suggests that 87% of Black adults say the United States criminal justice system is more unjust toward Black people. 61% of white people agree. Lest you think these statistics are not relevant to New Hampshire, research from the Sentencing Project shows that New Hampshire has a Black-white imprisonment disparity ratio of 5.2 to 1, and a Hispanic white imprisonment disparity ratio of 2 to 1. And to bring this a little more personally, how many of you were taught to drive with your hands in the 10 and the 2 position in the steering wheel? See your show of hands. Many, many, many. I think they teach you 9 and 3 now, but most of us were 10 and 2. In March of 2018, Brian Perez was stopped by the New Hampshire State Police for having his hands, and wait for it, at the 10 and 2 position. The arresting officer claimed that the driver was, quote, suspicious, unquote, because of this and other factors. The court, to its credit, found this reasoning, quote, difficult to credit, unquote. This is an example of the courts correctly addressing bias that we want to replicate. Judge Ruoff described the work of the Diversity and Inclusion Steering Committee. I know that there are many melanin-challenged people who do not believe this effort is necessary, as Judge Ruoff mentioned that he did not quite understand before about 18 months ago. To those people, I say that the statistics and examples I have just shared and many others prove that this work is needed. I know that there are many melanin-enhanced people who do not think this effort will make a difference. To those people, I say, I have already seen a change in the discussions in the courts because of this effort. Even if no operational or administrative changes occur, the mere fact that stories of injustices and inequities will be heard by those in the justice system will improve the system, because people cannot unhear or unsee what they have heard or seen. And this effort is not the only effort to improve the justice system. It will occur alongside other efforts, such as the newly constituted Juvenile Justice Reform Commission's Subcommittee on Ethnic and Racial Disparities, and the new Center for Equity and Justice, to name a few. Please engage with those efforts. It is the only way they will hear how you all and we all want justice to be served. In conclusion, while it will take time, I have faith that the leadership of this autonomous branch of our government that serves as a check and balance to the other branches will make improvements in how justice is dispensed for people of color in this great state. And I will do everything in my power to help this initiative move forward so that we can say the courts are upholding, and Judge Ruoff stole a little of my thunder here, from the last sentence in Article 2 of the New Hampshire State Constitution, the Bill of Rights, that reads, "Equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by this state on account of race, creed, color, sex, or national orientation." Won't you join me? Thank you.
With members like this on our advisory board, I have great personal hope that a year from now, we are going to be very different. Tomorrow, we are going to be different. Every time we meet, we have conversations that really matter. So right now, at this moment, this is where the most exciting part of our evening begins and where our real work begins. This is step one. We've spent 15 months setting the stage, and now with your help, we hope to make significant steps moving forward to make the lasting change that we envision. We're looking forward to having the discussions at the tables with all of you, and we hope you'll stay with us so that we can. Answering questions that may have come up tonight, or perhaps questions that you brought with you. And for those of you who have chatted in questions, know that we will get back to you. As the chief said, this is all very transparent, open, and we will be accountable to you for what we do. We will be reporting to you periodically, meeting with many of you around the state, and continuing these important conversations, as well as soliciting feedback as we move forward. In the meantime, please do complete the surveys that we have. Your feedback is really important to how we can move forward. Before we close, there are many people who have helped make tonight possible, and I would ask you to join me in thanking them. First of all, Renee Denton, the CEO of this Manchester Community Resource Center, who has allowed us to use this space and has been invaluable in helping us get this arranged. Second, our two ASL interpreters, excuse me, Shelley Parks and David Kruger. Our tech team, personally I'd be lost without them, Brian Eddy and Dan Morin. Our security team, Jason Jordan Hazy, who is the Chief Security Officer for the state court system, and his deputy Steve Walsh, and many members of the Manchester Police Department. And finally, Laura Kiernan, who has come out of retirement as our Public Information Officer to help us with all of our communications and our outreach. So on behalf of the entire Supreme Court, the steering committee, including our three who could not be here, Diane Martin, Judge Mace, and Sarah Freeman, who are all struggling with the illnesses we're all occasioning, and as well our advisory board. Let me thank you very sincerely for making time this evening to come here to help us and to help us move forward. We look forward to many, many more opportunities. So thank you all. And now, if you're welcome to stay, grab some more refreshments, and we're going to join you at your tables for having conversation. Thank you.